सहनाववतु सहनो भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। वक्रतुण्डमहाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः।
Welcome everyone. Glad that you all are able to make it today for the Satsang series. This is the third in the 2024-2025 Satsang series, and I'd like to introduce Sanjanaji before we begin the talk. Just to give a brief introduction, she's originally from New Jersey, but now resides in the big state of Texas, which I believe for the past 4 years, if I'm not wrong, 4 or 5 years or more than that. And you should have by now you should have been well appreciative of the Texas hospitality in that everything is big, I believe. So that's great. Doesn't snow as much as in New Jersey, but still good. She's a brahmacharini with Chinmaya mission, which allows her to kind of conduct multiple programs from Devi group sessions to CHYK classes and Baliya satsangs in the local Dallas Chinmaya mission Fortworth centers. And one fun fact about her, and I've known Sanjanaji personally for a very long time, is she loves wilderness and anything that involves water. So we could probably foresee some satsangs or camps happening at the beach side, probably at some point. Hope so. And she's gotten into gardening recently, and she says that her firecracker flowers are still alive. So she claims that to be a great achievement. So that's great. And she's always looking for the next adventure that's out there. If you want to reach out to her, please do reach out to Sanjanaji at CMDFW. On their website, if you go, probably her email is mentioned, and you can reach out to her directly as well. There are certain CHYK classes that she conducts, and maybe you can be part of them as well. With that, thank you, Sanjanaji, for taking your time for the satsang tonight. I hand it over to you.
Thank you, Nikhil Bhaiya. And let's go ahead and get started. So in this CHYK series, we have been looking at chapter 13 and taking up two values in the first 3 verses or so. So today I will be covering two values called Arjavam and Acārya Upāsanam. So we are all here as sadhakas. Sadhaka means that we are seekers. That means we have to ask, seeking what? We are all here seeking a higher purpose in life. Now, this is not just a theoretical discussion, but a call to awaken the glory of our human intellect, align ourselves with virtuous conduct, and rediscover the invaluable role of the teacher or guru in this pursuit. So in our Shastras, we see that human beings are named or crowned as the Chudamani of all beings, the crest jewel of all living beings. And it is because we alone can question, who am I and why am I here? This inquiry is our starting point to uncover that highest purpose. The intellect is the only tool we have to use for this search, and human beings are the only ones that have it. So the intellect, what exactly is it? Our Shastras say that it is the capacity for vichara, the ability of abstract and subtle thinking. The intellect has a capacity for dharma viveka, adharma dharma viveka, to be able to distinguish what is right from wrong. And the best application of the intellect is atma anatma viveka. Atma means that highest self, to know the self from what is not the self. This is what that intellect is really capable of doing. This is what our Shastras are asking us to make use of our intellect for. Now, it is because of this intellect also, we have the freedom of action. Freedom of action means the ability to do, to not do, or to do otherwise because of Ichha Shakti and Jnana Shakti. Ichha means desires and Jnana means knowledge. I have a desire to do something. I must know how to do it, knowledge, and therefore I shall do it. Now, when we say freedom of the intellect, freedom of action, we immediately want to say, yes, freedom means I could do whatever I want. And we give into it. But Puja Gurudev turns it on its head and says freedom is not just being able to do whatever we want. In fact, it's the ability to do in spite of what I want. It's a very important distinction they give us in this ability of Viveka. We can change our pre-programmed baser mechanical impulses to come to live a noble, intelligent, and productive life. Now, there are a lot of adjectives in there, but each one is important. Pre-programmed, baser, mechanical impulses. And we are able to overcome that with that intellect to live a noble, intelligent, and productive life. This is what the intellect can do, and it is a great power. And of course, as soon as I say great power, there's a quote from old Spider-Man movie that comes to mind. With great power comes great responsibility. So having this powerful tool above all other animals means that we have an even greater responsibility to manage it and use it well. So just because we have an intellect doesn't mean that we're intelligent. There's a big difference. Just because I have an intellect doesn't mean I have intelligence. It's like someone having a violin and they've never played it before. They can't call themselves a violinist or an expert in violin just because they have a violin. What does it take? They have to learn how to use it. They have to learn to practice using it, and they have to learn to come to master it. Then we call them as a maestro, right? A violinist is a maestro. So in the same way, I have to learn how to use my intellect, practice the application of that intellect, and finally to master that. Then we are called as intelligent, not until then. So there's a huge difference between having an intellect and having intelligence. Now, what is the main content field that the intellect works with? It is knowledge. So now we have to see what is the glory of knowledge. Knowledge is power. So the intellect guided by the right knowledge, we can achieve great success and greatness itself. And our Shastras say that there are two types of knowledge, secular and spiritual, or dve vidye veditavye para chaiva para cha. So this comes directly from Mundaka Upanishad, saying there are two types of vidyas, dvi vidya, para and apara. Apara means is that secular or worldly knowledge that leads us to understand what the world is, how do I function in it, and how do I make the most of it. And para vidya means that which is an inner unfoldment, knowing who I am and what I'm made of and what my goals are. Understanding both will help me have complete knowledge. In fact, apara vidya, when we learn it well, will lead us to para vidya, the ultimate and supreme knowledge of liberation. So I have to learn to live intelligently in the world to attain liberation from the limitations of the world. So I can't run away from it. I have to go through it. And this example or message was given strongly when we look at Arjuna in the beginning. Arjuna was paralyzed by the confusion of right action in the beginning of the war, Mahabharata war. And he said, my God, I cannot kill my family, my friends, and my guru on the other side. Even though they stand for adharma, I don't have it in me to fight this war. And so he said, therefore I shall run away. The pseudo sannyasi is what overcame him at that point. I want to run away from this world. Bhagwan said, nah, no going nowhere. You sit here and listen and have clarity of what is para apara vidya so that you may come to have clear knowledge and therefore you can make clear decisions. Bhagwan equipped his intellect with clarity of that highest knowledge, And it is this knowledge that gave Arjuna the courage to live intelligently in the world with his eye on ultimate liberation. We are that Arjuna, and we are scared of our own life sometimes. We don't know what to do. We don't know what right decisions to make. We are lost. Therefore, we seek that knowledge to give us clarity. And based on that clarity, I can live intelligently through this world to keep my eye on that ultimate liberation. So, knowledge, how do I gain it then? Through what means? This is when we have to see the glory of the teacher. Even baby animals have to learn how to survive and learn the skill set to survive in the world outside. Even us, when we are born as a baby, no more than another animal, we have to use our body, our speech, our mind, even things like walking, talking, and recognizing our own name has to be taught to us. And the first teachings come in the form of our parents. So we proudly acknowledge them as our first gurus. Matra Devo Bhava, Pitra Devo Bhava. That they are Bhagwan in the form of our first teachers. Then, of course, in modern education system, we get into the world and we learn how to earn bread and butter. We got to learn the skill sets to survive in this world. So we get trained, vocational training. Then somewhere along the way, we gain coaches and mentors that dig in a little bit deeper. They help us identify and refine our own character, our conduct, and talents. So in one form or the other, the role of the teacher becomes vital. Teacher or teaching, therefore, becomes the fundamental, noble, and highly respected profession, so much so that gurus become sacred to us. That is how much we value teaching in what it can do to us. We can discover our talents, but we need a teacher to train and hone our skill sets to manifest it to its fullest potential. So there was an example I had once read that somebody had shown Guruji a really impressive watch. It had all sorts of gadgets. They could track their heart rates. They can talk, the full latest technology. He said, Guruji, look, isn't this so cool? So Guruji said, okay, show me how does it work? And he stopped talking. What happened? I don't know how to use it. Somebody gave it to me, but I have no idea how to use it. So it's useless if we don't know how to use it. So thinking and knowing is an inherent capacity of the intellect. But if we don't know how to use that intellect with the right knowledge, it will only lead to stress, sorrow, and leads to trouble. So right thinking gives us joy, peace, and strength to face any challenge in life. The guru or teacher is the one who guides in how to think rather than what to think. This is a very important distinction. Guru guides us in how to think and not just what to think. So today we're going to be looking at two values, Arjavam and Acārya Upāsanam, to see the refinement of this intellect and maybe see the relationship between these two values that have been listed. So let's first dive into Arjavam. Arjavam has two English translations, and they have an interesting unfoldment if we follow each of these words to its depth. First translation is straightforwardness, and the other one is uprightness. Straightforward and upright. Now, often we can skim over this and say, yeah, they're synonyms, whatever. But really, when we pick apart these two words, they have depth of implications that we may not catch in the first look at these two definitions. So in Holy Gita, or a commentary by Puja Gurudev Swami Chinmaya, he defines straightforwardness as someone who is harmonized, who has an integration between thought, word, and deed. This is straightforwardness. Uprightness means that he has an intent on right conduct. So two very distinct features when it comes to Arjavam. Straightforwardness means integration. Uprightness means integrity or right conduct. So let's first look into integration first. What does it mean to be integrated? If we look at the question, who am I? Puja Gurudev says that we are the experiencer who experience the world of experiences. So I think of a grammatic sentence, subject, verb, object. You have an experiencer doing the experiencing on the experienced. Now, who is the experiencer? What are we made of? Puja Gurudev says we are made of four personalities. Not that we have the psychosis of split personality. We have four distinct personalities that are functioning within us at any given moment. First is the physical personality, emotional personality, intellectual personality, and finally the spiritual personality. And all four of these personalities are subtle and working simultaneously, all reaching out to that object of experience, trying to experience it in its own realm of experience. Sorry, I use the word experience a lot. Bear with me a little bit here. So let's take an example in application. You have someone who offers you a sweet disrespectfully. Very interesting case. Someone who offers you a sweet disrespectfully. So you can imagine there's a Diwali, and they have a plate of laddus and they like throw it at you. Here, have some laddus. Okay, so what's happening in this moment? The mouth is watering because honestly, that laddu looks really good. You've got the motichur ki laddu that's like dipped in ghee like 5 times. Man, my mouth is watering just thinking about that. So that's the physical personality reacting to that experience. Emotionally, there's a lot of resentment. How dare you? You fling it at me? No, no, no. I can't hardly accept this. What will my dignity, where will my dignity be if I accepted such a laddu? So that's the emotional reaction. Intellectually, but yeah, you've eaten too many sweets already during this holiday. You got to look after your health. You may develop diabetes. Please take care of your body. Make the right decision. This is now your intellect getting involved. Now, spiritual. Now, we're not saying consciousness. We're not going all the way to that height. So when we say spiritual, our guidance by our shastras. So what would that voice be telling us? Dhamma, Shama, please have self-control. Avoid this habit of excessiveness. So you got mouth that's watering, emotions that are resentful, intellect that's looking after your health, and spiritual that is saying, please practice these values and virtues. Each of them are entertaining independent values, and all four are trying to be satisfied. But of course, in this scenario, they're all conflicting against each other for one reason or the other. When there is a disintegration, meaning a mismatch of all four of these layers together, there is friction. Just like any sandpaper on a surface that don't match or are cohesive, they'll naturally gain friction. In our personalities, when there are differences in all four, there's a friction which is seen as stress or sorrow or pain. So in order for us to have a good experience, there needs to be proper integration of all four personalities. Now, each one. Which one really is the most important one that we need to integrate or that needs to speak the loudest? If we look at the physical, the sense, the 5 organs of perception and the 5 organs of actions among all of us are pretty much the same. They have the same functionalities. They function as they're supposed to be. There's nothing much we can do about it. Mouth will water. What can you do? Nothing else. Now, when it comes to the most essential nature that we have, we're talking the spiritual personality, the very consciousness within each and every one of us is only one and the same in all. Ekam Advayam. So that also cannot be changed or debated upon. Where is our conflict now resolved to? Mind and intellect. The mind is related to the emotions. Mind is the seat of emotions, feelings, and impulses. And impulse is a very important word because it is also common to animals. So for example, if you yank on a dog's tail, of course he'll turn around and snap and bark at you and will react. That's the emotions. It has a very complicated reaction, but it's a simple trigger mechanism, impulses. There's no thinking, there's no judgment, there's no analysis of motive of why you pull that dog's tail. Usually, so that quick reaction is by the emotions, that mind. Now, in our own example, whenever we say freedom is doing whatever it is that I like to do, that means I'm letting my emotional personality take hold. That we do things because we feel like doing it. Here's an example where we get into trouble with this. I don't feel like going to the gym to start exercising. So that's when we get into trouble. Disciplining means that I don't care what I feel, but I know I have to do it. That's when willpower becomes a strong like thing that I really need at that point. Because who am I fighting? My own emotional state. I don't feel like going to an exercising or going to the gym. So finally, the last personality we have to look at is the intellect. That is the discrimination faculty. It is able to distinguish between what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong, what is real and unreal. And that intellect is strengthened through higher knowledge. So now, if we look at the conflict or friction that we're happening in any moment of experience, it's fundamentally the conflict between the nature of the emotions and the thoughts, the mind and the intellect. And they naturally oppose each other. When we are overwhelmed by emotions, we don't have the faculty to make good decisions. But when the intellect makes a decision, there's no room for sentimentalism. So we must mend and cultivate this mind-intellect complex. If we don't cultivate it, it putrefies. It's like a stagnant water that sits there with no use. It becomes stinky and unproductive. Religion now holds up that mirror and provides us a way of chastening our emotions and edifying our thoughts. The intellect now has to have a firm hand. It has to have clarity of thought. It's the officer in charge. The mind is the connection between that intellect and the organs of actions. So the emotions or the mind have to be in line with the conviction of our vision. So it's like the desk clerk that is taking orders and giving instructions to the organs of action. So the key to success behind all man of achievement lies in their faculty to apply this intellect in all of their activities without being misled by surging of emotions. So satyam is another way we can think about it. Truthfulness. Truthful to live by the intellectual plane. So living honestly according to our own intellectual conviction, this is the ideal that we have to live up to. And we should be able to not compromise on the convictions that our intellect has. So at any given moment, when we have a conflict between all four personalities, the key is the intellect has to stand out and everything else has to come into alignment with that intellect. So this is when the value of Arjavam makes a lot of sense, when especially we talk about integration. Arjavam is the purity of character, absolute ethical soundness, with a justifiable straightforwardness as to the principles as its precondition. Okay, that was a lot of words. I took it straight out of some of the books I studied. What does it mean? That I am honest in my dealings with others around me. That the seeker is inspired by the greater goal, and we are inspired to commit to that highest path of spiritual values, and I'm able to live in alignment with it. So this is what integration means. And the result is there's no fears because he has no expectations from the world. So where is that connection again? My goal and ideal comes from noble virtues and values that I have learned from the Shastras. My intellect has been equipped with that. My mind, my senses, and my spiritual personalities all are in alignment with the decisions my intellect makes. And therefore, I have no fear in the world outside. I'm not tousled around by likes and dislikes. I'm not tousled by praise or censure. The world is not going to tell me what to do. My source of knowledge is Shastras and Guru, and my intellect has that conviction and strength to stay put. Everything else is aligned. So when we say Arjavam is straightforwardness in the aspect of alignment, this is what we're talking about. Integration of all four personalities to follow a well-informed intellect. Now, another way we've seen this is an alignment between thought, word, and deed. This is straight out of that commentary. He says, this is an alignment between thought, word, and deeds. Thoughts are the ones that have value and that have learned and that are in alignment with dharma. My words and actions are aligned with those thoughts. So now let's look at actions and words. How do we practice this? Whenever we perform an action, we have to ask ourselves, 3 questions. How do I prepare for the actions in the world? Meaning I go back to my intellect to understand what are its aims, goals, and methods of achieving that in a dharmic way that will help me fulfill and uplift myself. How can I get my mind to follow my bidding? Can that mind who tends to go off rails, can it come back into alignment with that intellect? And how can I continually improve my daily contact in my life? These are 3 fundamental questions when it comes to introspection and reflecting on my actions. Now, Puja Gurudev in Self-Unfoldment, I'm pulling this material from Self-Unfoldment here. It says, positive attracts positive. We all know, especially the intellect knows, that love, mercy, cheerfulness, kindness, joy, and courage, they're all values that we admire in others. If they have it, oh, they're so great. They're so awesome. Can I hang out with them? But when we have to act on it, we tend to compromise on those ideals. That is when it is, bear with me, I'm mixing English and Sanskritam here, Arjavam. We're the opposite of being straightforward, right? There's a misalignment. And why is it that we constantly get misaligned? The mind is not able to execute what the intellect is saying. And in other words, the ego gets involved. The mind is the connection between organs of action. It is the one that translates the thoughts of the intellect into actions of the body. The mind is the one that has to stay in alignment. Disciplining the mind is called yoga. Yujya is to enjoin or connect. In this context, it is connecting the intellect with the action. So how is there more practical reflection we can do when we want to see this alignment? Puja Gurudev's process of introspection is key here. Introspection is 4 steps. Let me see if I have the summary here. Okay. Detect daily. When there is a misalignment with the noble convictions of my intellect, my actions of my body is misaligned. What is being thrown in between? It is this mind. So start detecting what the mind is doing, how it's going against the intellect's conviction. What sort of justifications, logics, tantrums does it throw up? We need to start learning how to detect the chaos that the mind gives. Then the next step would be to negate ruthlessly. Negate ruthlessly. How do we negate this? First is when we detect that the mind is misaligned, that it's throwing a tantrum, I want to feel ashamed. Mind, what the heck? Why are you not staying in alignment? Come on, you know better. When these dialogues come into our mind, we should truly feel that feeling. In fact, in this case, being ashamed is a great feeling. Not all bad feelings are bad. Being ashamed is the first step in fueling change. Until I truly want to understand that where I am is not where I want to be, that comes in the form of being ashamed of myself. In a healthy manner, that's not a bad thing. If it's not there, if I don't have remorse or regret for bad actions, then I got to go check my convictions. What is it that my intellect knows? Is it educated with the Shastric values? I can tell that my intellect has weaknesses when our ideals are defeated and we callously compromise them when anger distorts our vision of life. I will leave this investigation a little bit later when we look at the durgunas within us. Anger, jealousy, miserliness. These are all indications that the mind has overtaken against the convictions of the nobler intellect. Once I truly come to see the ugliness of my own, the imagery that's coming to my mind is I'm at the bottom of the well, living in that gunk, that staleness, that putrid ugliness that's at the bottom of my mind. If I truly come to feel that, then I won't have the motivation to want to get up and get out. So once that negation is there to feel ashamed, I have to then substitute it now. Now I have the energy and enthusiasm and motivation to want to change it. This is when we come to substitute. Can I do the opposite? I'll give you an example. If I am miserly, I tend to not want to share things. What would be the natural opposite? Share. Therefore, dana, charity becomes an important value to help negate miserliness. If I'm jealous, then the best advice I got is, why are we jealous? Because we appreciate what that person has. We wanted it. We don't have it. They have it. Best thing to do as the opposite is go up to them, praise them for what they have, and ask them, can you teach me that value? What will that do to our ego? Ugh, it really rings out that ego saying you have no place here. Do the opposite. If you have arrogance, this is the toughest one. Practice humility. So detect that weakness of that mind, find its opposite, and study well how to practice that opposite value and virtue. That will help uproot the tantrums the mind tends to give. Finally, when we say alignment between thoughts, actions, and words. Now, straightforwardness in terms of speech doesn't mean that I'm blunt. What? I'm telling the truth. What? You can't handle the truth? That's also not the best way to handle straightforwardness. Our Shastras say when it comes to speech, may it be satyam, priyam, and hita. Satyam is that integrity to the truthfulness. I'm not going to lie about things. I'm not going to make up things. I'm not going to corrupt and manipulate. It is going to be straightforward in terms of truth. But I'm also straightforward in making sure that it's received well. I've put it in such a way that the recipient of it will accept what I have to say. And finally, I will only say it if it's useful. I may have a lot of thoughts, but oftentimes it's best to keep my mouth shut. Because if I say it, it actually causes more problems than helpfulness. The ego and the speech are highly tied together. So knowing its usefulness in terms of what helps and what doesn't help is the last value. So straightforwardness means that I'm able to control that tongue so that the value I have of satyam, priyam, and hita are practiced. So the summary here would be introspect daily, detect diligently, negate ruthlessly, and substitute wisely. I'll say that one more time because it's a nice phrase and you can find this in self-unfoldment. Introspect daily, detect diligently, negate ruthlessly, and substitute wisely. This will help keep that integration of all four personalities. So really speaking, the value of Arjavam is like a thermostat or a ruler that I keep checking what the heck is going on in my mind and intellect. Is it in alignment? Is it in misalignment? Is it in alignment with my ego and selfishness? Or is it in alignment with Shastras and noble values? The more straightforward I am, there's more integration between thought, word, and deed. So whenever there's life's challenges, someone who is morally upright has that mental enthusiasm, intellectual alertness, and physically ready to take on any activity he's called upon, and there's no lacking in anything he has. This is this dynamism that Gurudev is talking about, and it comes from this integration. So when it comes to uprightness, the one who has right conduct, this then goes directly to the concept of dharma here. The intent for right contact. Dharma, the very root word of dharma is dhr, and it has generally four synonyms we can use in English. That which holds, upholds, maintains, sustains, and integrates. So again, we don't see much of a distance between dharma and arjavam here, that it upholds and integrates. So from a broad scale, it governs and regulates the peace and prosperity and development of all. We say dharma leads to abhyudaya, all around prosperity, and someone who protects dharma palan. Someone who protects dharma, they are able to do so because they are following and living dharma. That is the only way to protect dharma, by being it itself. And on an individual level, by adhering to dharma, it purifies and prepares the mind to gain that highest knowledge. Remember, we have to work through the world to attain liberation, not running away from the world. So dharma and straightforwardness to follow that dharma is what will help me get through the world to find that highest knowledge. So Arjavam is that straightforwardness to live by those values. It is the intellect educated on this dharma. And we will often see this in Puja Gurudev's work when he says, let the book become you. If you're studying Shastra, let it become you. And this also reminds me of another instance when someone said, so Puja Gurudev, I've gone through Gita so many times. How many more times do I have to study it? Puja Gurudev says, how many times has Gita gone through you? This is that alignment we're speaking of here, is that intellect so equipped with that knowledge that the mind is ready to follow that intellect. Has Gita gone through you? So it is not misled by that ego, and it is to rise above the egocentric view of things. It is to be able to accommodate the constant awareness of the totality of the world, the entirety of mankind, and the vastness and wholeness of the universal problems that exist. When we have such a mindset and vision, then our individual problems become so minute and absurd that we even wonder, why do I even have this problem? It's not even a problem. I have better things to work on here. This is the greatness that we can achieve if we follow straightforwardness established through one's integrity. Now, we keep saying it has to be educated through knowledge. How am I going to get this knowledge? This is when our second value becomes very important here. Acārya Upāsanam. Now, as soon as you see those words, you say, okay, this is service to the Guru. Do seva to the Guru. Guru, I brought you food. Guru, I bought you this house. Guru, can I wash your feet? Guru, can I iron your clothes? Yes, there are values to doing things physically, but it is not just physical service to the Guru that we're speaking of. In Holy Gita, Puja Gurudev's commentary, he defines Acārya Upāsanam as someone seeking mental and intellectual identity with the teacher's pure mind and intellect. The most important word here is identity, this alignment with that guru. So let's take a look first at understanding who is this guru. We have to be careful because if we want to become aligned, then I have to know what it is that I'm getting aligned to. So guru, granati iti guru, the one who teaches. And that word guru can be broken up into two letters, gu and ru. Gu is the word that means darkness, andakara. And ru means tejas, that light. So, gukara cha andakaraha, hi rukaraha tejaha uchyate. The one who removes darkness of ignorance with a light of knowledge is called as gurus. So anyone who removes our ignorance can be called as a guru. But in our Bharatiya culture, the one who gives us that spiritual knowledge that removes the darkest of the dark ignorance, the ignorance of our own true nature, is the one we designate as guru. Now, of course, there are many different types of knowledge. You have karma or vachaka guru, guru who teaches us about what is right and wrong, the right type of conduct, like Arjavam. Duties of each stage in life, like brahmacharya, grahastha, vanaprastha, and sannyasi. What are my duties? What am I supposed to do? Ethics and morality, rites and rituals, traditions and customs. People, there are gurus that can teach us about this. Typically, we call them as pandits or purohits, not just those pujaris that chant a bunch of things and we don't know what's going on. Not just that, they give us guidance in life in its original form. Then you have upasana or mantra guru. This is someone who initiates us or guides us in spiritual practices like puja, japa, and meditation, more subtler forms of sadhanas. Then you have the third kind of guru called jnana guru. And of course, there are three kinds of jnana gurus, so please bear with me. Three within three, okay? So, Prera Guru is someone who prompts us to the spiritual path, and it can come from anywhere. Someone who, a person, a family member, a friend, even a saint or a sannyasi that we see out there. It can even be a striking incident or a difficult situation we went through in life. And even studying others' biographies. What has their life been like? A lot of inspiration can come from any different source. This initiates us or sparks us into this inward journey. They're called as Prera Guru. My favorite form of such guru is Narad Muniji in all of our shastras. Naraji, we complain and saying he always starts trouble wherever he goes. But honestly, it's trouble that gets us to look inward. So really, he becomes the Prera Guru in a lot. And of course, he becomes Guru of much more but he was one example that came into my mind when I thought of this. Then the second type is Bodhaka Guru, the one who teaches us the scriptures. This is the process of Shravana. I need to know what is in the Shastras. What is it? What are the values? What is the description of values? What is the goal of life? Who am I? The content of Shastras that are being taught, someone who does that is Bodhaka Guru. He inspires us to reflect and introspect. Finally, the Chudamani of all gurus is known as Satguru. Again, please don't pronounce it as Sadguru. I know it's spelled Sadguru, but it is Satguru, meaning the one who liberates us from the cycle of birth and death with the knowledge of that ultimate truth, capital T, that highest truth. He revels in that knowledge. He has Brahma Vidya, and therefore called as Parama Guru, the highest and most revered among all gurus. Now, what is so special about this Satguru here? There is a description, and I think this is by Samarth Ramdas in his teachings. He said that we are like children that have been lost. We've left home or we lost our way and we can't find home. Many will come to us and can be kind to us. Some can feed us, some can give us shelter, some will even give gifts. But the best one is one who guides us back home. So Samartha Ramdas said, when we have somehow gotten separated from our creator and we are lost in the wilderness of samsara, Satguru is the one who takes us back home and unites us with God. So that Satguru is one who has that experience. He has gone through the finiteness and separation that causes fear. And he is one who has united with that supreme infinite, and he knows how to get out of this cycle of birth and death. He is the only one that has experienced true fearlessness that no one else has experienced in this world. Therefore, he is the one qualified to teach us. And there is 3 qualities that we say define this ultimate guru. He is Shrotriya. He is well versed in that Shastra. He is able to explain the Shastras, clear our doubts, resolve apparent contradictions, and address any contrary views. He has that capacity to teach. Then he's also Brahmanishta. He is the one who has realized the truth because he has himself experienced it. The example is, how can anyone teach someone how to swim if they don't know how to swim? How can they help us cross over the ocean if they themselves don't know how to swim? So in this case, Sadhguru has experienced that highest knowledge, therefore can show us the way. And finally, he is Akama Hata. He is desireless. He has no agenda. He has no selfish motive. There's nothing for him to gain by teaching us. He's nothing but compassion and love. And all he cares about is the well-being of the disciple and guides out of compassion. He has walked the path. He has lived a life of discipline and has done intense spiritual practices, so he understands well what those challenges are. He is worthy of being served and should be served. Therefore, Acārya Upāsanam. Now, when we say Upasana, the best and the foremost of all seva that we can do is surrender itself, prostration. So let's take a look at the symbolism behind head and feet. Head and feet. The head is in the highest position and the entire body has to hold it up upright. Surrender, in terms of prostration, is where we bring that head all the way down to that guru's feet. And the feet now are the ones that keep us grounded when it is firm. When that feet is grounded and firm, the head can be held up high. You play around with that symbolism here, the relationship between the feet and the head. And there was a quote along with this. Where you sit depends on what you stand for. If you do not stand for something, you will fall for everything. So again, where we are grounded is where we can keep our head held high. So our greatness depends on the greatness of the values, ideals, and goals that we align with. When my values are well grounded, I will not be led astray. The feet represent that knowledge, goals, values, divine virtues, ideals, nobility, and culture we stand for. And to touch and worship the feet of those we respect, we are saying, I bow down onto what you stand for. So Sadhguru, he stands on nothing less than that highest truth, God principle itself. Therefore, it is not only worthy of salute and worship, but worthy of meditation upon his feet. I can meditate on Puja Gurudev's Padakas. That's why it reminds me of Guru Padaka Stotram. That he stands on that truth itself, therefore his feet are worthy of meditation. And often we describe it as the lotus feet of the Guru. Why lotus? Because it is the one that has arisen pure from the murk of samsara. A lotus is blossoms and its delicate pink fragrant flower from the yucky of mud that it's surrounded by. Only a lotus can do that, and therefore Satguru is like that too. That in this world of yucky samskara, he is that one pure, divine, fragrant idol that shows us the way out. So this reminds me of Hanuman Chalisa. It's probably becoming one of my favorite lines out of the whole Chalisa. I purify the mirror of my mind with the dust from the lotus feet of my Guru, or in this case, Hanumanji. And thereafter I shall sing the noble glories of the Lord, the giver of the four Purusharthas. And the next line is, Buddhihina tanujanike sumiro pavana kumar, bala, buddhi, vidya, devu mohi, harahu kale savikar. I am ignorant. I remember my Guru, Bhagwan Hanumanji, and pray that he bestows upon me that strength and intelligence and wisdom so that I may get out of this sorrow and conflicts are completely removed through it. We all need strength. We all need steadfastness to perform our duties, our swadharma, our spiritual practices, and the fortitude to face all adversities. That intelligence and wisdom is to realize that truth, and we will automatically be liberated from the conflicts and sorrows of life. So this is prostration, surrender to that Guru. When we do, what are we called now? In English, it's called as disciples. But the closest word to disciple is discipline. So this is the other layer of Acārya Upāsanam, that I am ready to be disciplined. I am ready to be disciplined. And again, we have to remember that alignment. Seva to the Guru is an honest attempt to live the life of high values prescribed by that Guru. It is that identification with that spiritual knowledge that the master exemplifies. It is willingness to be disciplined. We surrender ourselves to the way of life indicated by the Gurus, Upanishads, and Gita, and it is attunement of my thoughts and actions to such declarations. This is true surrender. And in such a surrender, no task is worthy or unworthy. Whatever the Guru says, I will follow because they have my best interest in their hearts. They have nothing to gain. It is out of their compassion and love. Therefore, I'm surrendering my ego and ready to accept whatever they have. This kind of reminds me of a Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi. Like I'm talking about the old movie where on a fence he had like, wax on, wax off, turn to the left, turn, and the whole time he's like, Mr. Miyagi, what the heck is so useful about just doing this? Finally, we see in the fighting arena that this was the act to defend. Hiya, hiya. So a lot of times in our own sadhanas, we don't know why Guru is telling us to do what we need to do. He has the foresight, we don't. But our surrender is, I will follow what you tell me. And a lot of things our gurus will ask us to do in this worldly life will seem meaningless. The best example is getting trained by Swami Sarveshanji in the kitchen. A very simple example. that he would give a peeler and an apple, and he'd challenge, saying, "Can you peel the apple in such a way that there's only one string of peel? It's not like in broken pieces. You don't like chop it all up. One awesome stream coming off of that apple. What does it take to do such an action? Attention, delicateness, dexterity, steadiness. How much of our mind has to go into a simple act of peeling the apple? Or when Swamiji taught me how to fry puris, I would be impatient. He's like, you have to wait until the oil has come to the right temperature. Otherwise, you'll make your puris soggy and you will cause yourself a stomach ache. So I had to learn the value of patience while frying a puri. He said, if we can't perfect actions in the kitchen, then how can you perfect the mind for something that is higher and out of this world, otherworldly? So it is through the world that we gain that highest. So no act is too great or too small for this. And on top of that, that surrender is we bring humility. May that ego never raise its head up and argue with the teacher. There's an ability to ask questions for further inquiry with Shraddha. There's a different way of asking versus this fight. I want to prove myself. You're wrong. There's a different attitude in the types of questions we ask. May my ego always remain at my guru's feet and never lift its head. With that, it makes me available to attune my mind and intellect to that pure mind and intellect of that teacher. So look into Puja Gurudev's relationship with his own guru. There were, and I wanted to go into these stories, but I don't have time. So I'll leave it up to you to open up Journey of a Master, Puja Gurudev's biography. And there you'll see incidents where Swami Tapovan Maharaji said, you will leave this ashram and no longer be my student if you are not able to remember what I tell you and you never ask me to repeat a concept. Meaning it's that alignment with the mind and intellect that it is so sharp, so available, and so present that I am ready to receive what the guru is giving me. He got up before the guru and went to sleep after the guru. Because the bhava of showing up is, sorry, guru, I'm late for class. That's the ego and its laziness. That it revels in its own comfort and doesn't seek that knowledge. Guru, it doesn't matter when and where you tell me, I will always be ready to receive that knowledge. That is that surrender and seva. I will leave with one last story when we really talk about that devotion and surrender to that guru. It is the story of Padmapada Acharyaji. He is one of the disciples of Adi Shankaracharyaji. He was first known as Sanandana and was his original name, and he was a brilliant student. He could grasp things like 3 times, 4 times faster than any of the others. So the guru would spend more and more time with him. Of course, all the other Shishyas got jealous and thought guru has favoritism and this ain't fair. Adi Shankaracharya, of course, understood the minds of all the Shishyas. And so one day, this was in Badrinath, Sanandana was engaged in some sort of work on the other side of the river. And Adi Shankaracharya, while he was in the company of the other disciples, suddenly got up and reached out or called out to Sanandana. Usually, to get across that river, you have to go around it, and it took too long. Suddenly, he was startled by the sudden call of his master, and his ardence to be there with his guru when called for, he started crossing that turbulent river straight across the waters. So intent was his desire to be by his guru that in the middle of that current, every time his feet touched the surface of the water, a full lotus bloomed under his feet and supported him as he crossed that river. His anxiety to reach that guru was so strong that the world would shift to support that intent. So he reached his guru, bowed down and touched to it, and he was completely unaware that these lotuses had bloomed under his feet to help him reach there. And the guru and all the other Shishyas saw this and were awestruck. They could see the purity of his love and devotion to the Acharya, and they acknowledged the depth of his greatness, not just because of his intellect, but the depth of his surrender. The world moved to be able to make him come to his guru. So this is the connection between Arjavam and Acārya Upāsanam. So I'm going to do like a quick flow of all the thoughts that we gathered in today's lecture. First is we are seekers of the higher purpose. The tool we have is the intellect. May all of the other personalities become integrated and aligned to that intellect, and that is only done through introspection. With that intellect, may I abide by righteousness, by the code of dharma. This is the capacity of Arjavam. Now that source of that knowledge is the guru. So we saw the qualifications of the guru, then we saw the qualifications of a Shishya. The real attunement or Acārya Upāsanam is the attunement to the guru, is the attunement to that highest purpose. So now we've come full circle. We started with highest purpose, intellect is our tool, guru is a source for that intellect, and therefore may my intellect become aligned with that which the guru represents. So, through Arjavam and Acārya Upāsanam, may we become the lotus offering onto the guru, Jnana and Bhagwan. And with this, I hope we were able to find a little bit more depth in guidance of what our sadhana should be going forward. What we will do now is I will chant the closing prayer as a conclusion for our satsang part. And then I have two questions for you to use as discussion in the last couple minutes here. Okay, so we'll do Purnamada as our conclusion. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.